Wuthering Heights is in theaters now, but does it live up to its reputation as 50 Shades of Bronte? I'll let you know right now. This video is brought to you by Mando. Go to shopmando.com and use promo code Dan to get a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more info. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of the latest version of the classic novel Wuthering Heights, which is hitting theaters just in time for Valentine's Day weekend. This version is written and directed by Fennell, whose first film, Promising Young Woman, won her a Best Original Screenplay Oscar and might have been my favorite film of 2020. I also enjoyed her second film, 2023 Saltburn, although not quite as much. Here, she takes on Emily Bronte's classic novel Wuthering Heights, but this is not the version that you might remember from high school English class. As a matter of fact, if you use this as the Cliff Notes in order to pass the test without reading the book, you're gonna fail. Margot Robbie plays Catherine Earnshaw, the daughter of a very cruel man who's raised at a ghostly English estate called Wuthering Heights, which in this version really wouldn't be too out of place in a Tim Burton movie. When Catherine's father brings home a discarded young boy whom she names Heathcliff, the two become inseparable, especially after Heathcliff takes the brunt of Mr. Earnshaw's abuse. There is no other Earnshaw sibling in this version of the story. But after Heathcliff grows up to become Jacob Elordi, he grows jealous of Catherine's engagement to an upper-class suitor and disappears, only to return years later to reclaim his discarded true love, who's now married and living a life of luxury. There are two reasons why you should not show up to see Wuthering Heights this weekend. One is if you are a huge fan of the book and you're expecting a faithful adaptation. Even my limited memory realized pretty early on that this is not faithful. I think about half of the characters and plot of the book are not included in the film. The other reason is if you're buying into the hype that this is the steamiest movie since 50 Shades of Grey. The marketing would have you believe that this movie's basically one step away from a release on Pornhub. In actuality, there is definitely a lot of lustful longing, but I wouldn't say a whole lot of steam. There's a lot of heavy breathing and tortured looks, a few tame, for what the movie is promising at least, sex scenes that are thrown in for good measure. But to put it in marketing terms, this film is great at edging, but the climax isn't so spectacular. Now, jumping into this review, I think I have to make it clear that I believe that you can make great movies about terrible people. I think you can even make great romances about terrible people. What I have trouble with is when you try to make a romance about two terrible people and then try to sell it as a romance about two tragic lovers. In this version of Wuthering Heights, both Catherine and Heathcliff are terrible people. And I guess for Heathcliff's character, that's not so much of a departure. Elordi's version is an obsessive sadist who doesn't care whose life he wrecks if he's able to get what he wants. But Margot Robbie's Catherine is a liar and a cheater who rejects nearly every opportunity she has to do the right thing. I think the movie wanted me to like her, but I have to confess that I did not. I never felt 1 ounce of sympathy or empathy for her, which, again, you can do in a movie, but you can't then ask for me to yearn for her to finally get together with Heathcliff, to see this as some classic romance. The movie's coded that way, but I hated this romance. I mean, Romeo and Juliet were dumb kids, but at least they were likable people. I think part of it might be that the characters in this film had to be aged up due to Elordi and Robbie's actual ages, but still, they act like dumb kids. I mean, they're both hot, so I get why they were cast, but, you know. Honestly, I don't care if it's book accurate or not. I just didn't like the people that I think it's necessary to like for this movie to work. And God help us when, inevitably, people start romanticizing this toxic, emotionally abusive relationship perpetrated by these two terrible people, especially Heathcliff. Hashtag couple goals. I can see the breathless TikToks now. And if this is meant to be, as the movie trailer states, the greatest love story of all time, then quite frankly, we're doomed. Looking at the finished film, I think that Fennell actually boxed herself in by choosing to do a story like this as an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. I think that she really could have done a good Wuthering Heights-esque story that gave her more of a license to really go off the deep end. I mean, this movie is at times borderline camp, and it's meant to be. I mean, it starts with a nun admiring the erection of a man who's just been hanged, and then it goes from there. But it feels constrained by having to at least somewhat follow the plot of a well-known novel, and I think it holds the movie back from exploring some much more interesting possibilities. For example, after the dynamic between Catherine and Heathcliff is established, the second half of the movie really is just a repetitive series of scenes where they talk about why they shouldn't or can't be doing what they're doing, and then proceed to do it anyway. It's tawdry grocery store romance novel stuff that I think even Bridgerton fans might roll their eyes at, and honestly, I think that's what Emerald Fennell was going for. But that didn't really make it interesting to me. There is, though, another relationship in the film that I thought was much more interesting than Heathcliff and Catherine, and that was Heathcliff and Catherine's quasi-sister-in-law, Isabella. Isabella and Heathcliff have one scene in particular that is packed with more twisted sexual tension than all of Elordi's scenes with Robbie, and that then evolves into a mutual, I don't even know what it is between the two of them. It's the most twisted romance this side of Phantom Thread. But it's pushed to the margins because we have to get back to the main romance that I didn't really care about. I actually think that Alison Oliver, who plays Isabella, puts in the best performance in the movie, which is saying something when she shares the screen with 3 Oscar nominees, Robbie, Elordi, and Hong Chow, who I also enjoyed as Nellie, Catherine's lady-in-waiting, and sometimes Conscience. I also think that Martin Clunes turns in a loathsome, in a good way, performance as Catherine's father, Mr. Earnshaw, and the movie actually starts off on solid footing, establishing Heathcliff and Catherine's relationship with their younger versions, played by Charlotte Mellington in her acting debut, and Owen Cooper, fresh off winning pretty much every award in existence for his debut in Adolescence. They're both very good young actors. It also has to be said with this movie that as underwhelming as I thought the story was, the actual look and production value of Wuthering Heights is incredibly impressive. The director of photography is Linus Sandgren, who also shot Saltburn, as well as movies like American Hustle and La La Land and First Man and Babylon. This is one of the most stunning looking films that I've seen in a while. Critical response so far to the movie seems pretty mixed. We'll see what audiences think, but I really hope that this film is remembered a year from now at next year's Oscars because the cinematography is superb. Sandgren dulls the Wuthering Heights estate in an oppressive darkness and constant rolling fog while drenching Catherine's other home, Thrushcross Grange, with vivid colors. The landscape shots are breathtaking, and this seriously is worth seeing on the big screen just for the cinematography. It's that good. Production designer Susie Davies, who also did Saltburn and last year's Conclave, equals the cinematography by giving every room and every setting in the film a different look and feel. And 2-time Oscar winner Jacqueline Duran's costume design is very good. Duran's work includes Little Women and 2006's Pride and Prejudice, and she brings that classical feel to this very modern take on a period piece. Overall, Wuthering Heights is an incredibly well-made film whose shortcomings are all on the page, not the screen. And it's tough to know what to make of this movie. I mean, it left me almost completely cold on an emotional level, but it absolutely thrilled me as a film lover because of how damn cinematic it is. I think I actually would have liked it better with the sound off. I can't really fault the performances. I just don't think that Fennell's take on this story worked. Having said that, it's not an utter failure on a story level. It's just an unengaging one. And I don't think I can tell you to stay away from a movie that looks as great as this movie does. So on my personal scale, I'm giving Wuthering Heights a rating of it's fine, and this is probably going to be the best made movie that I will ever give that rating to. I just don't think it works altogether as a story. But what do you think? Are you still going to head out to see it this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this review, Mando. This video is brought to you by Mando. If you're like most people, when you leave the house, you make sure you look good, you make sure you feel good, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't smell good. Well, with Mando, you can scratch that worry off your list because Mando's whole body deodorant stops odor before it even starts. Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body and blocks odor all day with odor control up to 72 hours, and it's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Mando's deodorants come in stick and spray forms, and you can choose from a variety of scents like bourbon leather or my personal favorite, Mount Fuji. When I was in Utah going to movie screenings all day, I was out of my hotel room sometimes for 12, 14 hours straight, running from movie to movie, and then sitting in these kind of cramped little seats next to a bunch of strangers. But no matter how long I was gone, I was never worried about how I smelled because I trust Mando every single day to keep me smelling good. Some men mask their BO with scents. Mando men get the job done right. Don't mask it, Mando it. Mando's available right now in retailers near you, or you can head to shopmando.com because for a limited time, new customers get 20% off site-wide with my exclusive code. Use code DAN at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. That's shopmando.com. Please support the show and tell them that I sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and say hello to long-lasting freshness. Thanks to Mando for sponsoring this review, and thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.